The number one thing that we as parents must do is know our child.
So, okay, as we're talking through discipleship and communicating our family values to our kids, whether that's through literature or through just having conversations with them or reading scripture with them, memorizing scripture. I mean, there are so many ways that we can do that. Did you, with your kids, did you have, were you really intentional with all of them about establishing goals for them in who they would become? And I don't mean necessarily like, okay, when you grow up, what do you want to be, when they're 11 years old, and let's go towards that. Because, most 18-year-olds don't even know what they want to be when they grow up. A lot of 25-year-olds don't know what they want to be when they grow up. But how did you help your kids to establish goals based on how God created them and then help them to reach those goals as they were growing up?
The phrase that you used, how God created them, is so important because we all come here wired a certain way with certain gifts and certain insights and responses to different situations. And so the number one thing that we as parents must do is know our child. And we have to become a student of our child. And sometimes we use actually tools. There are all kinds of things that we use in the business world, the strengths finders and the personality profiles and different things. Use those with your children. Those can help you to kind of get your head wrapped around who they are as a person and what kind of path they should be on. The scripture that is so often referred to from Proverbs says, train up a child in the way that he should go. And it literally means in his way. Mm. And so knowing the child and how they are programmed to know that child's way, and therefore that we can guide them in those decisions and goal setting. And so sometimes we feel like the parent should be setting the goals, but in reality, we should be helping the child set the goals and find the path. And that's such an exciting journey with each child to be able to just discover who they are and help them to recognize it. And let me tell a little bit about one of my children. Yeah. From the very early years, he was an artist. And he would make sculptures in the mud. And he would call Jan over and say, look what I made. And of course, she couldn't tell what it was. But as soon as he said it, she could see it. It was like he was creating things. And so she began calling him her little artist. But he didn't want to hear that at the time because that wasn't cool. But art is part of who he is. And he began over the years, as we gave him opportunities to, develop those artistic skills, he embraced that, but it was part of helping him find his way.
Yeah. Give a few more examples of how we can do that with our kids, because oftentimes we hear like, okay, when we have kids, we need to help them figure out who they are. And there are some obvious things like, I have one who's an artist as well. I mean, she's really great at art and always has been. I cannot draw or paint to save my life. I mean, it's pretty bad. I can't sing either. But she was just born with this gift of art. But that's not necessarily her path in life, is to become a professional artist. It's just part of how God wired her.
That's right.
How do we really dig deep? And we have an opportunity with having our kids home with us all of the days of their childhood to be able to figure out who they are. But can you give some more practical, like, here's how to really hone in on who they are and how God created them?
Our oldest child was our easy child after the first 2 years. I mean, he was so headstrong, we thought we were going to lose our mind in the first 2 or 3 years. But once he finally decided that we weren't his enemy, then he was easy. He was bright. He read early. He was very compliant. He was very, so we thought we were wonderful parents. But nonetheless, he could do so many different things. But one thing that happened to us with him is that someone in his life, a youth program leader, came to us and said, we recognize this ability in your son, and it was leadership. Okay. He says, your son is a leader. Okay. So sometimes it's other people that will tell you what's going on with your child. So we need to listen to all the voices. So sometimes it may be even our in-laws, that recognize something. Some teacher or program leader or something, they recognize certain giftings. And so, and then I've already mentioned, using tools of assessing giftings or insights and things like that. But in the case of the leader's son, this friend said, he's going to be a leader and you should train him. And there's this business leadership conference that's going to be in town next month, and I think you should take him. He was 14 or 15 at the time, and this was for business leaders. He was the only kid there, but it started him on a path of learning, and he swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. And so sometimes we need to think of tools that adults in the business world would pursue as far as development tools. And so books, he started listening to, at the time it was tapes and CDs. Now it's podcasts, but exposing them to people in worlds that operate in those giftings. So our daughter, who is now a fashion designer, we thought she was just playing whenever she was cutting out paper dolls. We didn't know that she was going to be using those scissors for a living, but we began to connect her with people that really understood fashion and understood sewing and understood, all the things in that field, among other things we exposed her to. But that's what took. We didn't know what was going to take. We just knew what her strengths were. And, to some degree, they kind of choose their path. We just need to expose them to a lot of different options that are within their strength zones. We grow in our strength zones. We don't grow in our weaknesses.
Yeah.
We tend to only want to work on the weaknesses, but we need to work on the strengths.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.